This is Balance of Power on Bloomberg TV. Support in the Senate for aid for Israel and Ukraine is strong on a bipartisan level. So Speaker Johnson is facing an uphill battle if his bill gets through the House. That's a standalone Israel funding bill. And that's where we begin our conversation with West Virginia Republican Senator Shelley Capito. Senator, it's good to see you. I know you heard this week from the Secretaries of Defense and State in making their case to do this in one bundle, support Israel, Ukraine, and the other matters that include the border and Taiwan. I know you met today with the new Speaker of the House. He stopped by the GOP luncheon in the Senate, and it appears a lot of you were impressed despite your differences on this. Lindsey Graham, maybe the biggest hawk in the Senate when it comes to Ukraine, said he's the right guy at the right time, and I want to help him. What did he say to you?
Well, I think, first of all, for a lot of us, and me in particular, it was an introduction. I had never met the speaker, just seen what he was saying publicly. And so to have that more personal interaction is absolutely critical. I actually was served in the House for 14 years before he got there, so I know what the House is all about. And you can see, I could see why Speaker Johnson was elected. He's very articulate. He's well liked. He has a self-deprecating way about himself. He bowed to this fact that, not literally, but, oh, I'm up here at the upper chamber. That's, you know, the little joke we always have between the two of us. But he did lay out concrete ideas and why he's moving in a direction, and that they're well thought out plans. And I think that's what we need to talk to with our leadership. Certainly I'm in leadership, to talk with him and his leadership team to see how we can work together on a lot of these issues.
Well, we want to show our audience as well, and another member of your leadership team, of course, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, has to say about this. He talked about the threat of not funding Ukraine and Israel on the Senate floor yesterday. Take a listen.
The threats facing America and our allies are serious, and they're intertwined. If we ignore that fact, we do so at our own peril. The Biden administration's defense budget requests have systematically ignored these growing threats. The president's supplemental request to address multiple crises that have unfolded on his watch is a recognition of this failure.
He's saying it's a Biden recognition of failure, but at the same time, we do know he wants to fund all of these national security concerns around the world, including Ukraine. Do you think a Speaker Johnson is going to be able to see eye to eye with Senate Minority Leader McConnell?
Well, I think what Speaker Johnson needs to do, and this is what he said in our lunch, is, you know, he needs to notch a win in the trust of his membership over there, and by putting forward an Israel-only package with an offset, arguably it's an offset that's been debated, that he's demonstrating that he's interested in spending less money, but also supporting Israel. So you know, this is his first leadership commitment, and so I think to follow through on that, I think, is important for him. When it comes to the Senate, many of us are committed to having Ukrainian continue this, to push back Putin and keep him, get him weaker and weaker, and these are all intertwined, and I believe that to be the case as well. So we may end up, once it comes over here, augmenting the package with those important issues, but it has to have serious policy objectives in there for the border, because this is about our own national security just as much as some of these other things, if not more. And so I think you'll look to see it be changed when it comes over here, but I think it's important for the Speaker to pass this. And you know what? Personally, I could vote for an Israel-only bill, but I do believe that we need to support Ukraine and also beef up our defenses on the in the Indo-Pacific, but also, most importantly, the border.
I know you've got Secretaries Mayorkas and Becerra before the Appropriations Committee next week. You're going to be talking a lot more about the border, and you've made clear, Senator, it's not just about money. I think you're just suggesting now it's about policy change. What do you need to see?
Well, I think we need to see substantive changes that's going to bend the numbers. I can't for the life of me see how this administration could keep sustaining policies that are letting over 200,000 people into our country. We don't know who they are. They've caught over 200 that are on the terror watch list, millions of people over the year. with no tangible results of anything that they say they're going to do. I don't think they care to do it. So we're going to force this on the president, and it's going to be asylum claims adjudication, it's going to be parole, it's going to be probably some remain in Mexico and other ways to stop the flow and deter people from coming into what we now see as an open border.
Well, do you think that will get Democrat votes? It's the only way it can pass the Senate.
I think it has to be, yes, I do think that it depends on, how far it goes and how far reaching. I think we have consensus on certain, there's a group working towards consensus on certain items in this space. I don't know how the Democrats honestly defend these numbers in our southern border in the time of all the fentanyl that's coming over, all the Secretary Mayorkas said yesterday 600,000 gotaways. In other words, nobody knows who they are or where they are. So, I mean, these are indefensible positions, and I think the Democrats probably realize that and realize something needs to be done.
I want to get back to the matter of Ukraine while you're with us, Senator. Can you give us a sense of how much divide there is within the Republican conference in the Senate? We heard, for instance, from your colleague, J.D. Vance of Ohio, who seems to think this is another endless war, and we don't actually have an end game that senators can plan around. He issued a statement differentiating, to his point, Ukraine and Israel. What would be your answer?
Well, I think in terms of the way I see it, in terms of the Ukrainian funding for the military, I think there have to be guardrails. I think we have to make sure that it's not an endless humanitarian support, that it's military, that it's building up our own capabilities here at home, using American-made product that the Ukrainians are using. They are making progress. I see it more as a deter Putin exercise, because if he wins here, we know he goes to another NATO country. He won't to a NATO country, which then deepens our involvement. And right now, we don't have men and women on the ground, and we don't want that. Nobody wants that. So I think it has to be constraints, and I think you're going to see that come out of the House and probably out of the Senate as well.
Senator, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Sure.
Senator Shelley Capito from West Virginia. We really appreciate that insight. Coming up, the U.S. Treasury announced